started with the introductions because we have a limited amount of time and we want to add some time for questions because it's a really good presentation and a good topic. My name is Josh Hawley. I'm a professor here, and I'm here to introduce Dr. Sungjin Lee, who is a postdoctoral researcher in the OERC and at CHRR. When I went to hire a new postdoc, which I do most every year, Lee came to the top because, first of all, he has a significant economics background with master's and bachelor's degree in Korea, but also had worked with an economist at Missouri, a guy named Peter. Yeah, Musser. I was going to say Mook. Mook was another economist I knew, and I don't know why I crossed that. I've never crossed that before. Peter Musser, who is an economist I've known for years, and Peter and I have done similar kind of work in Missouri and Ohio with state administrative data for 25 years. And he's done a lot of work on, among other things, the GED and SNAP. And most of our work here is more focused primarily on employment and training programs and program evaluation that way. So I was really interested in getting somebody from his lab here specifically. And Dr. Musser referred Lee, and thankfully he ended up here and has been working the last year on a variety of projects. We benefited from the fact that not only did he do one of his dissertation papers on SNAP, but he's also worked on something called RESEA, which for those of you who are in the employment and training world is kind of like a souped up version of unemployment insurance. And RESEA, we're doing a big randomized controlled trial of that right now for the state. So he had previously worked on the RCT for Missouri, so we got really lucky on both of those cases. And from a empirical perspective, he knows his stuff. From a kind of theoretical perspective, he's also really interested in connecting criminal justice and employment and training data together, which is unusual. You don't see that very often. And so he has this kind of innovative paper that he's going to demonstrate today. So without further ado, also my teaching partner for the last 2 semesters in 3000. So
thanks for having me today, and I'm so excited to be here for sharing my job market paper, Work Requirements and Recidivism. And please feel free to interrupt me anytime if you have any comments or questions. And actually, I'm on the job market right now, so actually any comment or feedback also on this paper and my presentation would be super helpful. So before I dive into the paper, I want to briefly introduce my research program. So as Dr. Hawley already mentioned, then my primary research interest is in policy analysis and evaluation. And my passion about this subject is from my working experience in the public sector. So before joining my PhD program, I worked at a foreign aid government agency in South Korea for 4 years, which is really similar to USA. So my main task was reviewing and evaluating project and program based on 3-year development the paper which shared between Korean government and the partner countries. So I was really shocked when I was reviewing the project. The many projects actually produce unintended or even negative outcome. And I found out that the major reason that the negative outcomes is from the without any evidence based project development process. So a goal as a researcher, my goal is to provide some reliable evidence for a better policy and program making process. So I particularly interested in 3 areas: so welfare policies, criminal justice, and workforce development and education. So my dissertation composed of 3 chapters about SNAP, or Supplementary Nutritional Assistance Program, work requirement, and recreational cannabis legalization. So my first chapter, I will briefly introduce the later part. But I just using the Missouri SNAP administrative data, I just see what's the impact of SNAP work requirement on SNAP participation. And the second paper, I will just digging in some interaction area between welfare policies and criminal justice that is SNAP work requirement and recidivism, which is how we're gonna present today. The third chapter is about the criminal justice, so I just examine the impact of recreational cannabis legalization on recidivism. And as a graduate research assistant, I involved in state and federal funded evaluation program, especially about the workforce development program. And currently, here are some ongoing projects right now, and you can see I kind of really curious guy, so I really interested in many areas. So right now, I just working on 3 papers about some related to changes due to the pandemic area. So one of my working paper is about SNAP online purchase and food selection. So due to the pandemic, SNAP participants actually they can spend their benefits through the online system, which has never happened before the pandemic. So I just wonder how it affects their food selection and nutrition intake. And another one is about unexpected transition to online classes and how it affects to the student outcomes, and what's the role of the broadband access, which is to mitigate the relationship between professors. And I also kind of interested because I have a chance to teach the public budgeting finance class last year. So I just find out really interesting in this subject. So recently I just keep searching about how the AI, artificial intelligence, can be help local government to enhance their ability to better budgeting plan. So that's kind of one of my interesting right now. And with Professor Holly, I work in the project about the employment transition in 2 ASEAN countries, Vietnam and Thailand, and also some state-funded evaluation program about identifying barriers to SNAP participant employment. So if you see any interesting topic, then I'm really happy to talk about it after the conclusion. And I need to mention that I'm too ambitious. So I just plan to present 2 papers today, and it's already announced it. But while I just prepare my presentation, it turns out that 45 minutes is not enough for 2 papers. So I just decided to focus on my job market paper. So if those who are here for another paper is school segregation, racial segregation and student outcome, then I'm so sorry, but I'm so happy to talk about it after the quiz. Okay, so here is my research question is, what is the impact of the Supplementary Nutritional Assistance Program, or SNAP, formerly known as food stamp work requirement on the chance of reincarceration? So here is some kind of context and background about the policy. The SNAP is a federal means tested entitlement program to provide monthly in-kind benefit for eligible low-income households to buy some food, right? So it's the second largest social safety net program in the US after the Medicaid. So in fiscal year 2023, on average of about 42 million people per month actually receive SNAP monthly benefits. And this is a means tested program, which means that you need to meet their eligibility criteria, right? So there are gross monthly income and net income and assets. So if you exceed those thresholds, then you are not eligible. But once you are eligible, entitlement means that you will get the benefit, right? And in 2024, the average SNAP benefit is about $200 per month for a single person, and about $700 per month for a family of 4. And of course, it's an in-kind benefit, so you can spend on the authorized food item from the authorized food retailer or grocery shop, right? So, and here's a fact about the work requirements. So in 1996, there are some changes in welfare policies in the United States, and we sometimes call it welfare reform, right? And the main purpose of the welfare reform is that the government wants to promote some self-economic sufficiency and reduce some welfare dependence, right? So the work requirement is one of the attempts to promote those kind of work effort and reduce welfare dependency. So according to the SNAP work requirement, a subset of SNAP participants, which categorized as able-bodied adults without dependents or others, they have to work or participate in work programs at least 20 hours per week to maintain their SNAP eligibility. So if they fail to meet the requirement, they only got 3 months of time limit, and after that, they're gonna lose their SNAP eligibility and SNAP benefit, right? So those of us are working age groups, so age between 18 and 50, they don't have any disability, and they have no minor dependent in their household. Right? But at the same time, others can be exempted from the work requirement if they prove that they are not unfit for employment due to their physical and mental health issues, or they're pregnant or already exempted from SNAP general work requirements, such as first-time students, then they can exempt it from the work requirement. And state can request waiver to the USDA or United States Department of Agriculture for the area, typically it's a county level, with an unemployment rate above 10% or with insufficient job. So I just brought some snapshots about the work requirement status nationwide. So the colored area means that they are exempted from the work requirement because they meet those 2 conditions, right? So in 2007, you can see some parts of the counties, they're exempted, but see the Texas, almost all counties are subject to the work requirement, right? In 2009, and we already know in 2009, there are financial crisis and economic downturn. So there were nationwide exemption, right? So except for a few counties in Texas and South Dakota, so actually all the counties are exempted from the work requirement. And starting from October 2010, the state reinstate work requirement depends on their economic situation. And for your record, it happens, same things happen again during the pandemic, right? So during the pandemic, the nationwide work requirement exemption already implemented for those years. And you can see there's some kind of variation in terms of work requirement imposition across counties. And I'm going to use this variation for my empirical strategy to see what's the impact of this work requirement on the chance of reincarceration. And here's some facts about who is about, right? So it's kind of unique group compared to the general SNAP participants. So they're kind of small population. It's about 7 to 9% of SNAP participants. And unlike the general SNAP participants, which a typical image is like single mothers with a younger child. But unlike the general SNAP participants, the majority of them male. And they live with small household members. It's average 1.2%, which is basically majority of them just live alone, right? And obviously, they have a lower average income compared to average of general SNAP participants. So they're quite unique population. And it's not that many known about this population so far. And here's some literature about the effectiveness of SNAP work requirement. So this previous studies tried to see whether the work requirement achieve its intended goal, right? So as intended, maybe people required to work, so they work, they got more salaries, so they got work experience, so finally they got a decent job and leave the SNAP. That's the what intended goal for this policy. But unfortunately, there are some inconclusive about this effectiveness of SNAP work requirement. So previous studies have found that the work requirement reduce SNAP participation of us, right? And here's some literature, and my first chapter is also about this topic. So I used the Missouri SNAP administrative data. So my empirical strategy was that I just select some SNAP household with children, and I use the sharp moment when the youngest child become age 18. Then if you live in the county with work requirement, then suddenly whole house members become above subject to the work requirement, right? If there is other reason to be exempted. So I just compare the chance of leaving SNAP between the household who live in the county with work requirement and county without work requirement, and see that sharp moment before and after the younger child's 18th birthday. So before 18, yeah, there is no statistically meaningful difference between two groups, but after 18, yeah, I found that the family who are subject to the work requirement are more likely leaving SNAP. So aligned to this one. But the studies have generally found little evidence that SNAP work requirement increase the labor supply in terms of either employment or working hours. So some find there's some increase in work hours, but some found there is no meaningful impact on their employment or working ages. So the Gary et al. Is noteworthy to mention because it's a really recent paper, and they use the Virginia SNAP administrative data, and then they connect to the UI wage data. So actually see whether the someone who are subject to the work requirement and see their working hours and employment status, and they found nothing about that. So that based on these findings, there are some concerns or criticism that the work requirement deny the most vulnerable populations access to the social safety net without any beneficial to their employment, right? And based on this, I just try to focus on another group, which is also, I think, is really likely affected by the work requirement, which is ex-offenders, and they're rarely addressed in the previous studies. So because the substantial number of ex-offenders actually can be categorized as abuse, because according to the survey of inmates, the 53-year-old males and 42% female were not parents with minor children, which is potentially can be categorized as abuse. And the previous studies have a consensus about the public assistance program and employment is really effective policy tool to reduce recidivism, right? So public assistance benefits such as Medicaid and SNAP, actually the previous study consistently found that the chance of recidivism is going lower. And of course, employment in the labor sectors, especially for the industry that have many jobs for low-skilled workers. Actually, we have a high demand for that job, for those jobs, then the previous study found that the chance of recidivism is really low, right? But unfortunately, the work requirement actually have a two component in it, and at the same time, right? The work requirement asks you to have a job, and also they try to give you public assistance. But to my knowledge, this is the first empirical attempt to examine the work requirement on recidivism. And why does it matter? So everyone knows the United States, one of the top countries, has a high recidivism rate, and every year between 700,000 and 800,000 are released from prison, and within 3 years, about 68% of them actually rearrest within 3 years and return to prison, right? So this is really a crucial issue in the criminal justice. In 2021, the one study showed that the states actually spent over $8 billion related to cost of recidivism. So the states, they just try to develop their re-entry programs, including applying for public assistance benefit before release if they're eligible, and they try to restore their driver license and job secure training. So I think it is really my paper can be contribute to those to address this issue based on some previous studies. And here's my hypothesis. And it's kind of an empirical question because three pathways are all possible. Because first, STEM work requirement can maybe reduce the chance of reoffending if the requirement induce majority of ex-offenders who are advised to work, right? In the case, they have a salary from their work and they also have a benefit from the SNAP. So the cost of recommitting a crime will be higher because they have to give up those benefits, right? So in that case, we can expect the work requirement can reduce the recidivism. But at the same time, work requirement may increase recidivism if ex-offenders lose their SNAP benefit because they can find a job to meet the requirement, right? So the previous surveys show that about a third of ex-offenders actually they cannot job during the 16 quarters after their release, who are released from prison from 2010 to 2014. So everyone knows that it is really hard to find a job with your criminal record, right? So in that case, actually, they lose their benefits, so they're more likely to commit a crime, maybe possible. And the third one is, it's also possible that SNAP work requirements have no meaningful effect at all because ex-offenders can meet the work requirement by participating training program instead of employment, right? And the surveys show that a large proportion of ex-offenders answer that they have some chronic mental and physical issues, right? In that case, they can be ejected from the work requirement. So three pathways are all possible. So I just try to, this is a question, so I want to do answer my research question based on this empirical strategy. So my empirical strategy is just comparing the chance of return to prison across ex-offenders who have a similar characteristic, but they have a different work requirement setting based on two policy variations. So first one is, of course, I already show you that there are some variation across counties in terms of work requirement. And the second variation I want to use is the SNAP lifetime ban policy for drug felons. So since the welfare reform, another changes is that who have a convicted of drug felony after 1996, they will deny SNAP access for their entire life, right? So that's really quite huge changes. But state also have some option to opt out that the federal regulation. So this is the status for all counties, all states as of 2023. So looks like South Carolina is the only state that still keep their SNAP lifetime ban policy. But you see the blue states, they have some kind of modification rules. Like if you pass the drug test, then you can eligible to SNAP policy. Or the green states, they just opt out the regulation, and also it doesn't matter your criminal record, you can always apply for the SNAP benefit. And for the period that I studied in this paper, there are so many changes in terms of this opt-out option, the status. So I also want to use this variation. So combining two policy variations, I thought that whether an ex-offender encounters the work requirement depends on so many factors, right? So county of residence. So if you're really similar two person released from prison at the same time, but if they live in the different county, one is under the subject to the work requirement and someone are not, it creates some difference, right? And it's also the same for depends on release date. So someone who live in the same county, but someone who released on January, the state exempted from the work requirement, but on August, it reads that the work requirement that creates some difference, chance of exposed to the work requirement, right? And it's also for the type of offense, maybe type if you are a drug or non-drug offense, and depends on the lifetime ban policy, that it also creates some variation. And the age of release, of course, if you release at 49 and for age 50, that creates some difference, right? So I assume that the chance of being treated or the exposed to the work requirement is as good as random. So this is my empirical strategy. And this study is an intent to treat analysis, which means that I don't know whether the sample ex offenders I have right now, they are actual SNAP participants or not, right? The reason is that this is also data limitation, but at the same time, the decision on whether participate in SNAP or not can be affected by the work requirement, right? So if you considering applying for the SNAP, then you just realize that, oh, I need to meet the requirements, so maybe I'll just give up. So that kind of things, it's a reverse impacted by the treatment, right? So I don't want to do that endogeneity problem. So this is intended to analysis, which means that, yeah, I don't care about their SNAP participation, but just see the systematic difference between who are supposed to work exposed to the work requirement and someone not, and compare their chance of return to prison. Right? So, do you have any questions? So here is my primary data set. It's a National Corrections Reporting Program data. It's a NCRP. It's an open level data based on state prison administrative data. So it includes a unique image ID. So I just track everyone whether they return to prison or not based on this unique ID. And of course, it includes some demographic characteristics, date of release and admission, types of offenses, and what types of release and admission and county of conviction, which I use a proxy for their county of residence following the previous study. And the period is from September 2010 to September 2017. And I choose my sample because my main interest of outcome is whether return to prison within 3 years, which is a common way to measure some recidivism. So I just choose offenders who released between September 2010 and September 2014. So I got the 3 years can track them. And I choose mainly for offenders aged between 18 and 47. So even after 3 years, so they still consider it a and so I exclude someone who died or escaped. I just surprised that some numbers actually they record as escape and kind of fascinating. And so it leaves me about 800,000 ex-offenders in my sample. And of course, I also use the SNAP work requirement monthly imposition data. And I also use the SNAP lifetime ban policy monthly status across SNAP states for the given period. It also controls like unemployment rate at the county level. And this is all the characteristic of the ex-offenders that I just control. in the model. And actually, I also constructing the data sets for my linear probability model. So this is the example. Like if we say individual A who released January 2010 and returned to prison February 2011. In the original data set, they have a separate record for every prison term. Like he does. I know that he entered the prison 2009 January and he released January 10. And if I just matching this unique identifier, then I find that he entered the prison on February 2011. So what I just do, I just created like pseudo panel data set, like so for the every quarter until he returned to prison. So this is the main reason I just do this is I just want to capture some changes in terms of the work requirement in the county, right? So if I just simply, hey, I know this person at the time of he release, the county of residence imposed work requirement, and I'll just see the outcome after 3 years. But I know there are so many changes during the 3 years, so I just want to capture that by just creating this panel data set. And I also do some average of unemployment rate for the given quarter. So if someone who are never returned to prison within 3 years after release, then I will have 12 the data record for the one person. And here is an average work requirement. So 0 means that for 3 months in this given quarter, the county never imposed a work requirement. And 1 means that all 3 months in given quarter impose a work requirement. And 0.3 means that only 1 month. And 0.6 means 2 months out of 3 months. 3 months in a given quarter are under the work requirement. So here is my main model. Like I just use the simple linear probability model. So I just using the two variation in a difference in different contexts. So YITCQ is the indicator whether individual I in county C returned to prison 2 quarters after release in a year and quarter T. So I just assume that each record as an independent, right? So I just control this quarter after release in the model. So the beta 1 is my main interest of coefficient, which is the WTQC is a proportion of months that SNAP work requirement in effect in county C at given quarter Q and year quarter C. And I also control some average unemployment for the given every quarter. And TC is an indicator for offenders in California who were released before and after the prison reform in 2011. So in 2011, California do some prison reform, which the main changes is that if you violate some minor technical violation for parole probation, the state of California decide to return them to local jail instead of prison, state prison. So which means that it lowers the recidivism rate if you only see the state prison record. So it could be affect my results. So I just including this indicator to control that. So X is a factor of individual's characteristics, and I control some fixed effect for county, calendar year quarter, and the quarter sector. So here is my main result. Before that, do you have any?
Misunderstood or didn't hear you right.
Yeah.
With the panel that you constructed, you have the people you have in that panel, you have them for the whole panel, like say somebody, their first quarter was release was like that, the first month you have, the first quarter you have in 2010. Do you follow them all the way
to the 3 years.
Just 3 years,
Uh-huh.
okay. So there's like some overlapping,
Uh-huh.
like, you're kind of censored.
Oh, yeah, it's a
person, right?
censored.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
Right
Well, it's
censored.
right censored anyway, but like for each person it is too, right? Like, so you have the time where if you, okay. I'm just thinking, thank you.
Any other? So here is my main feature. So this is main feature for offenders aged between 18 and 47. So for the 3 years after release, they still consider as a bus, right? So if you see the column 1, that I just including all sample I have for the age between 18 and 47. So it indicated that the additional SNAP work requirement imposition actually increased the chance of return to prison by 0.25 to 5 percentage point higher, right? So, and this is significant at 1% level. So, and in column 2, actually I just limited my sample to only non-drug offenders, and it's quite a similar, it produced some similar results. And in columns 3 and 4, actually this is one of my robustness check, right? So I just limited the sample to the drug offenders and just divided them who live in this stage, the banning SNAP benefit because of the lifetime ban policy, and someone who live in the SNAP stage, it's not banning the SNAP benefit, or at least modification their SNAP lifetime ban policy. So you can see here, as expected, drug offenders who live in the SNAP under the lifetime ban policy, I find nothing meaningful impact, and this is obvious because they don't have any eligibility anyway, so work requirement actually doesn't mean that to them, right? And in column 4, if the drug offender who can apply for the SNAP benefit, I find some positive and strong positive impact, which means that the additional SNAP work requirement actually do affect their chance of returning to prison. So here I'll just do the same things and divide it by age group. So the panel A is only for the non-drug offenders, and I just divided them 3 age groups. And I find some same positive and significant result, but you can see the younger ex-offenders are more strongly affected by the work requirement. And this is kind of my hypothesis is that if you're young ex-offenders, compared to the older ex-offenders, you are less likely to have some mental or physical issues to be exempted, or maybe less chance to having a minor children compared to the someone who are aged between 30 or 39. But it's also possible that, like in criminology, everyone knows that the young people are more likely to commit a crime. So yeah, but at least it's not opposed to my hypothesis right now. So, and you can see for the drug offenders with SNAP ban policy, I find nothing for any age groups. And for the drug offenders can apply for the SNAP benefit, I find significant positive effect for all age groups. And here are some main results by crime type and criminal history. So this is the criminal crime type which make them put into jail, the prison. So I find that the someone who are committing a crime as a property crime has a stronger effect compared to the violent crime, which is also makes sense that the SNAP benefit SLD is more affect your financial motivation to just crime. So it also is not also opposed my hypothesis. And you can see if you have if you already have a prior felony record, the person who already have a prior felony record as a strongly affected by who does not have any criminal records of the felony. And this also makes sense that it's maybe much harder to get a job with a felony criminal compared to the who doesn't have a minor. And here, I just compare the someone who are conditionally released, like probation or parole, and someone who are unconditionally released. So it's really interesting to see that I only find some significance in the someone who unconditionally released. So I have no good explanation about that. So it's a kind of interesting point from this analysis. And here I will just do some by demographics. So I find that there is not that big difference between white and African American sex offenders. And here's some the interesting thing is that Hispanic sex offenders have a opposite direction and marginally significant. And one of my professors at the University of Missouri just proposed that maybe there is something about the immigrant status. So if you're not citizen, then you have some limitation to apply for federal public assistance benefit, but I cannot prove that because I don't have any record about that. And I find the strong effect in male that where is female? So here's a female, and I find no significant effect at all. And that's obvious because the majority of more than 90% of my sample is. And here, another robustness check. Like I just select the offenders age between 50 and 59 as a robust. So they are not subject to the work requirement because they are already older than 50. So in column 1, unfortunately, I find some significant positive impact. But if I limit it to the non-drug offenders, then there is no meaningful impact at all. But in columns 3 and 4, which is drug offenders aged between 50 and 59, and divide them depends on the SNAP lifetime ban policies. I still find some positive and strong with that. And even for the drug offenders who does not have any access to the SNAP record. So it's kind of confusing research. And this is not strongly support my things. And you can see this, the significance from all sample actually driven by these drug offenders. So this is one of my future research that what happened these old guys with the drug offense criminal record. So you have any? So so here is some just what, so is it matter like the 0.05 percentage point higher, is that really matter? So I just calculate some cumulative probability for 12 quarters, which give me the 2.27 percentage point higher for offenders who are subject to the work requirement and if they are not, which means that if we assume that we have 600,000 offenders annually, and assuming that 85% of them are above, then according to my finding, we can expect additional about 34,000 ex-offenders will return to prison over 3 years after the release. So I just do some simple back of the envelope calculation using the average cost of a year incarceration and mean year served based on the NCRP data, which gave me the amount of around $8 million due to these additional ex-offenders. So, and I just also do the same thing if we assume that we provide all the SNAP benefit if there is no work requirement. So we just provide all the benefit, like every the value of SNAP benefit to the older ex-offenders. And actually, it's kind of similar amount of money. So, but if you think about some social cost and the cost from the victimization, then we cannot simply say, hey, this is not that significant or major issues that we have only 2.27% point higher the ex-offenders. But still, I think it still do matter. And I think from my future research, I will just a little bit digging in more about these issues. So here's my conclusion, like the research show that the additional network requirement increase the chance of return to prison within 3 years by 2.22 and 0.47 percentage point for non-drug and drug offender. And this is especially stronger effect on young male and unconditionally released ex-offenders. And one of my although one of my Robson check does not strongly support my findings, but my research indicated that the SNAP work requirement associated with the higher chance of reoffending of ex-offenders who if they need a public assistance benefit. So I think this paper can be contributed to the literature because, as I mentioned, this is the first empirical study examining how the work requirement affects criminal activity using the national corrections data. And I think it also can contribute to the ongoing debates about expansion of work requirements in other welfare programs, like such as Medicaid. So here we have a severe debate, but it's suddenly ended due to the pandemic. But if now we get back to the debate and whether this is really needed for other welfare policies. And there are also tendency about more strong work requirement. So in last year, actually the age range for the adults actually increased. So now the someone who are up to 52 from 50. So there are more people who are subject to the work requirement. And this year in this further increase like from 52 to 54. So more and more people will be subject to the work requirement if they need this SNAP benefit. And I think the also my paper can contribute to literature about recidivism and public assistance. So for the research, I was just particularly interested in the effectiveness of re-entry programs. So I know recently many states, they introduced some component as a re-entry program that make sure that someone who are eligible for SNAP or Medicaid, they make sure that they just fill out some application before they release. So they make sure that after release, they will get the public benefit. But I really love to see whether the effectiveness of those programs. And also, as I mentioned, I still want to know what happened for the drug or ex-offenders and age 50 or more. Maybe the qualitative research, if I have a chance to be funded, that's the project I want to pursue in the future. Yeah, thank you.
Not familiar with the data set that you use, so I don't know if this is available information, but were you able to control for the number of previous incarcerations a person had?
I got the record.
Awesome. What about for means tested entitlement programs, is having a GED or not impact?
That would be great if I have that one. I don't have any record for the kind of the training program during the incarceration, like job skills, but I don't have that record from the database.
I had one more question too. So it seems like, I mean, for counties, within a 3-month period, they can have 0 months of a work requirement, 1, 2, or 3 months. So the fact that it changes on a monthly basis in some counties is really interesting to me, in that I'm wondering if that kind of frequent change has an impact on whether people apply, what that kind of thing.
Actually, usually the USDA authorized the exemption for mainly 6 months or a year. So if once you got exempted, at least you got 6 months exemption, or a year, each per year you got exemption. Then if you want to extend that, then you have to submit another application for exemption.
I'm wondering, and maybe you showed this, but is there a lot of within state variation in the, like, are there, I know like Ohio had it for a while, right? It was like 60% of states, their counties were exempt, but for a while it was like all counties were exempt. And then they phased back in, like 40% were not exempt. So I'm wondering like how much within state variation there really is, and whether state effects are driving. And that's why you're seeing.
That's really great question. I mean, yeah, of course, certain counties, especially the rural area, there's not that many changes.
It's like
I mean,
always exempt.
yeah, always exempted, that kind of stuff. And I must say, this study may limited its externality because it's after the economic downturn. So there's sudden shutdown, all the nationwide exemption, and after that, my study is studying about after the October 2010, which is gradually the state reinstate the work requirements. So I know that some previous study days just want to show that this is not read by any other factors like the politics or that kind of things. But still, I agree that there are kind of limited variation for certain areas. Yeah, but for the urban area, there are quite many variation because depends on the economic cycle, that kind of thing.
Just more has to do with what you do in the future. I'm thinking about certain partners around the country that would love to have the results of your study. Have you thought about like how to get this to places like Feeding America, for example, or just thinking about what's the public conversation and how you might have that with this study? Yeah, I'm happy to talk with you about that because these are issues that, like the whole ABOT, we know that they attract a lot of attention, but as you show, they're not a big part of the population, but they're part of that national conversation, and maybe unnecessarily so. And so this is just further providing information for places like the Middle Ohio Food Collective when they go and are talking to state legislators and at the national level. But I'm happy to talk with you about that outreach.
One more. Going once. Dr. Lee, thank you.